giving us our ending note. Let me tell you just a teeny bit about Lindsay, as she is getting her PhD in education as a candidate in international and multicultural education with an emphasis in human rights education at the University of San Francisco. Her dissertation research aims to connect human rights educators with social justice educators and investigate pedagogical strategies in higher education. She is a 2011-12 Stanford Human Rights Education Initiative Fellow, and she has focused on collecting teaching resources to be archived at the website. For the last 3 years, she has been teaching at Gavilan College and Monterey Peninsula College. She has taught classes we all wish we had taken with her: Introduction to Social Problems with a service learning component, Crime and Society, Gender and Society, and Marriage and Family. This summer, she's heading to Ecuador to co-develop an English curriculum with teachers of the Amazonian indigenous community of the SHREI. Please welcome Lindsay Padilla.
Hi, everybody. The closing remarks, I swear it's good. You're going to leave going to wanting to do something. I can feel it, but not that I have to encourage you, because I know just by seeing all the presentations today and chatting with people that we have energy in this room, and we're going to go carry it forward. So it is a pleasure to be with you. I just want to say it's an honor to tie everything up. And this is just a very exciting conference that it's my second time attending, so I used to be in your seats at one point. And I join all of those who have welcomed you already to Stanford. And I think one of the key things is that this symposium is a point for us to carry this conversation forward. And we are a part of that conversation, and it could just die right here. At the second I dismiss you all, it could end. But I think it's really important that we carry this conversation forward of the things that the community college, why it's such an important part of bringing forth human rights education in higher education, and how each of us, no matter what we teach or where we teach, can still uphold the standards of the UDHR with what we do. So I want to thank Stanford for having us here today. Of course, there's many contributors: SPICE, the Program on Human Rights, International and Comparative and Area Studies, which I do want to go through the different focuses because I think it is important so you realize how global this is. African Studies, East Asia Studies, Russian, Eastern European and Eurasian Studies, and Latin American Studies. And then not only that, I want to thank all the presenters who came today and presented their work, very inspiring, and the students as well. I want to thank the SHREI fellows who I've got to know over the last year. I think there's 7 of us. And we've been doing monthly meetings, and we've had different roles and tasks and that kind of thing, but I've made really great friendships, and just being able to talk about teaching is something we don't get enough of. And so I encourage you all to apply for the next year's fellowship. I want to thank the students. I think that's something that was missing maybe a little bit last year. I mean, the beginning was started just last year, but having student voices with us today, I felt that. So maybe we can make it even bigger. And I was kind of like, I want my students here, support for each other. So, as we think about things that we want to change, or the things we want to add to the program for the next future years. So thank you, everybody, for that. So I would imagine many of you came here wondering what you were going to experience today, because I was in that same situation last year. What is this really about? Why does Stanford care about little old me in this community college and my personal issues at my community? Why are they sponsoring this conversation and everybody involved with it? I think the broader question is, why the community college, right? If we're talking about an open institution that serves, some of the most marginalized populations, women, immigrants, first-generation students, I think, and I kind of mentioned this in my presentation earlier, that I think that the community college is where human rights belongs, 100%. And so the fact that you're here, I'm hoping you're realizing that the schools that we go to, if they're truly open, they're truly democratic, then we should be able to introduce this into curriculum without any sort of hubbub from the administration. They should be fully supportive of this. So think about it from that angle. So Stanford wants to build this relationship, wants to work on human rights education, and sees community college, especially in California, right? There's just so much to be done. And so I think it's great that they're helping us with that. Bringing together, educators from all over the state is huge. Open the doors to new ideas, building creative community, and kind of giving us the impetus to go forward. So what I kind of gathered, my 3 takeaways from all the presentations today, my themes that I came up with. I first want to build on this idea of trends, and Felicia Tidbits kind of talked about that. That was her general talk, building on the growth of human rights in the 90s. But I also see it as community college being at a very critical juncture, right? In many presentations, as we're talking about all this exciting motivational stuff, then we're like, well, the budget cuts. I just left from a presentation to think about some of our most innovative, social justice-oriented programs are the things that are on the chopping blocks, right? And so I think, what's lining up with support from Stanford, it's matched with these budgetary issues that we're all feeling. And so that as a trend is something that what I take of that as a teacher is that I need to make my place on campus even more stronger. I need to teach with more intent, and I feel like human rights education helps us do that. So I saw that trend as not only the ability for me to go home and teach with intent and be deliberate in what I teach, but also that there are needs for us. You notice Felicia said, there's not a lot of research on this stuff. and we represent people going out there and doing work with our students, and we're on the forefront of human rights education in community college and in higher education. So I hope you realize the importance of you being here. You're the people that are bringing this forward. You could be the first school that starts a community college human rights certificate that I was talking about at lunch, presenting all across the country for this. So I hope that one of the takeaways is that you realize that you're kind of on the forefront of something, and that's something I feel actually in my dissertation work too. So the human rights education community needs us, the people that are in this room right now, and so that is a little bit of a call to action, I'm not going to lie. But not only that, we have the ability to shape how human rights are viewed in this country. That was another conversation that we had after dinner last night. United States citizens, Americans, human rights is like, oh, something far away, The fact that we get to teach in our classroom, we get to decide, we get to help shape what that looks like. And because that discourse is a little ambiguous right now in the United States, that we can kind of encourage our students to go forward and talk about human rights as a day-to-day practice. So I want you to realize that trend. Another thing that I thought kind of connected today is the importance of personal narrative, art, and expression. That's something that I just saw all throughout the day. I mean, I was in a presentation where we were looking at paintings from Guatemalan women. I was watching the documentary, student voices coming out. So this idea of expression, the ID cards, all these little ways of individuals expressing themselves. And so ourselves are included in that expression as well. Our stories, our students' stories, our community stories, they all matter. Real people, real stories was a quote I took away. I think Tony said it at the end of our talk. But this should be an entry point into human rights practice. It should be kind of the foundation. It really is. That step one is so important. And that's what pulls people in, is our personal human rights story. And we all have one. And that actually leads into this notion of building empathy through our stories that we share with each other. Building community in the classroom is all part of that trend. And then the final thing is human connection. I mean, we're talking about human rights, so human connection kind of makes sense. But connections of our students to other students, connections of ourselves to our students, not building that wall of the teacher-student relationship, connecting to other faculty on our campus, connecting with administrators, connecting with our community, connecting with each other in this room, all things we need to be doing, those connections, connecting with our emotions, something else, connecting to our professional practice, connecting to scholarship. I just felt this aura of connections and stuff we can actually continue with the break, the network, and connecting with SHREI, I think, is important. Like Felicia said, it is what we make it. I think Bobby emphasized that. Human rights education is what we make it. So what are the implications for the future? Key ideas that we heard today. What are we going to do from here? I think that one goal of SHREI is to find ways to sustain, strengthen, and grow human rights education at the community college. That would be what one of their goals is. I think it was founded knowing that your pedagogical dreams, if you want to say, could come true only if you met with each other, only if we were able to share with each other. And I've been delighted to hear your discussions and presentations, the challenges you've addressed, the stories you've shared, the community we've already built, and the opportunities we're starting to look at together. I hope the conversation continues, of course, throughout the summer into fall, because engaging each other can benefit every college represented here and, of course, our communities and our students. I hope each of you return home full of new ideas and a renewed sense of both purpose and possibility. But as you know, a professor's life is not always easy, especially in the early days of a new semester or a new pedagogical adventure. I think I heard several times today, how am I going to do this? Now you just gave me, my summer list was already really long, and now I have more things added to that list. So I want you to think now, though, that you see yourself as part of this SHREI community that we've built. And I hope you would expand this and turn the conversations into something kind of tangible and broader collaborations. So there are a few ways to kind of do this. Jonas and Tony and I have kind of been working on the web developing and the social media aspect, and why we were planning on launching and unveiling it today, it just didn't pan out. We had some other issues, but we do have some things starting. And so we do have a Facebook page, so you could like us on that, and you'll be able to know what's going on in the SHREI community and maybe even meet with other people on Facebook if that's your thing. We also have a Twitter account if that's your thing. If not, ask your students. What else are we doing? I think that's it. But eventually we're going to have a website, hopefully in the fall, where all the presentations you saw, all the resources that we were given today will be up there, documented, tagged, searchable, through the Manifestation Project as kind of a framework. So I want you to realize that, it doesn't end here, but we have to go out and build that community, right? So I thank you for being a part of this exciting adventure. I'm pleased that you were all willing to travel here, maybe take a little bit of a chance on what you were going to find at the other end to try to figure out what this was really all about, where it was leading, if anywhere. But now it's up to all of us to continue this and to make something of it. And I can't encourage that enough. We can put on a conference, we can provide the space to share, but it's really up to you guys to determine where this goes. And so I'm hoping that that's encouraging enough. And in keeping with the themes of the day, I would like to close by starting at the beginning. What was the first time that you heard about human rights? I want you to think about that for a second. What was the first time you heard about human rights? Where were you? What were you doing? Our human rights paths all start somewhere. Different countries, different situations, social situations, different lenses. When I think about why I'm here at SHREI, I think back to those emotional moments that connect me to greater humanity. What can you do in the next 24 hours was a question that was just asked in the last room. So I want you to be thinking about that. What can I do in the next 24 hours? I know you're not going to create an entire certificate program in human rights, but what could you do within the next 24 hours? Actually email the person whose card that you took just now? Actually sit down and write down that email address, something like that. So those are all things you can do. When I think about what I want out of this symposium, which is, I'm sure, very similar for many of you, I also think about the impact on my students. So it only seems fitting to close the conference with the voice of one of my students from the spring semester on how human rights had impacted them. Now that I have a better understanding of my community, I feel like human rights awareness can inspire a community to come together, bound by common beliefs in equality, justice, and human compassion. Human rights has a way of inspiring the good in people, and that is the very substance that turns a group of neighbors into a working community. Thank you.
I just want to say that in closing, Lindsay's talk used the word hope often. I hope, we hope. And hope is an important place to end. But hope is not an uncritical thing, nor does hope not contain its own disappointments. But hope has been described as the reorientation of knowledge to produce momentum against the future. And I think that here, knowledge was reoriented and there is momentum against the future with new colleagues and new collaborators. So we leave indeed hopeful with a question mark hanging against hope, as we should have. but with momentum too. And the students, I think, who came were a tremendous part of helping us reorient.